Okay, guys, I am now back. So we're gonna do this. This is how we're gonna do this, right? I'm going to talk through some of these stories and try and draw at least something. But just so you know, I am pretty bad at drawing. Okay. Poggers Bro, if you're here, welcome. Hopefully you kind of enjoyed my little story time here. But yeah, so we're gonna kind of start. I'll kind of start from when I first got an EMS, and then I'll kind of make my way forward, right? So, this is basically only gonna be just stories that I've found like interesting, a little bit relevant, stuff like that. And I might hop out of order a little bit here and there, but we'll start with like kind of this first story. So, um, I don't know how much you guys know about EMS or anything like that, but so basically. In EMS, a lot of ambulance companies also do wheelchair transfers. Okay, so people stay in their wheelchairs, and we basically just go pick them up, and we load them into this van in the wheelchair, and we just take them to appointments and stuff. I've had to do that for a couple of years now, but that is something that does happen. So, this is a story from when I first got into EMS, and fucking drawing skills are. Sorry, my drawing skills are fucking horrid. So this is supposed to be a wheelchair, just so you know. Look, this is the foot pedals, this is the wheel, and somehow this gets connected by magic, right? Go back to brushes. So I was doing this wheelchair transfer. Okay, it was my first week. I did not really know anything of what was going on. Okay, this lady, I was picking her up from the hospital, and she had been in there for a foot surgery. She'd gotten her toes amputated due to diabetes, unfortunately. So here's the little lady. I don't remember, like, yeah. Here's some hair for her. Boom. Look at that. Look at this beautiful drawing. Okay. So here's her feet, I guess. So her feet were wrapped up in some bandages, right? I can't really do white too much. She had some bandages on her feet anyway, and what is happening is her toe. They just did the surgery, and I guess they wanted a stretcher transport, but I ended up coming in my wheelchair, and that's what they ended up getting. So her toe was bleeding quite a bit, and I remember just looking at the nurse, and she's just like, "Okay, you're just gonna have to get her there as quickly as possible, so we don't have to wait for a stretcher." And I'm like, "Okay, like I'm just a new EMT that doesn't fucking know anything, but I will try my best to get her there." So, this lady was bleeding out of her toe, and I just remember getting her into the ambulance. She started getting, or not the ambulance, the wheelchair van. She starts getting a little lightheaded, and she just starts bleeding all over the place, which was already not ideal. And I'm freaking out because it's like my first week on the job. So I managed to race to the nursing facility. Okay, and I look at her bandages. Her bandages are just like, now it's just like all red. Okay, her bandages are everywhere, and I'm just like, okay, I need to tell the nursing staff. I think that's red. I'm colorblind, so if I do interesting colors, deal with it. Maybe that's close to red. Look, there you go. There's her bleeding. So the bandages are soaked in blood. I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna get her to a room. The nursing staff can help take care of this bleeding foot, right? So man, this fucking picture's awful. So I start rolling her in. There's just streaks of blood just all over the floor. Like it looks like a murder scene. Like literally, it's streaks of blood all the way to her room. There's just a ton of blood. Hold on, let me fix the green screen real quick too. Get some lights going. Lights, camera, action. All right, there we go. Fix the green screen a little bit. Where did my mouse go? Yeah, so it just looked like a murder scene. It was kind of funny looking back on it, just because there was just blood everywhere. I spent about an hour getting all the blood out of the back of the wheelchair van. It was not an amazing time, and you can imagine the stress level on somebody who's never done this before, just with a bleeding fucking patient, right? So that was not ideal, but that's basically the essence of that story. That one, like I said, that was kind of an interesting story. How do I make this bigger? Yeah, I don't know. I don't use paint very often, and like I said, I'm also bad at drawing pictures. So, and we're gonna get I don't have a ton of wheelchair van stories because wheelchair van sucks. All right, if you ever work EMS, avoid wheelchair vans. Holy shit, it's like the worst. I fucking hate it. Everybody who's in this field does not like doing wheelchair. It's like just you go to school to be an EMT and help people, and you're just rolling them around. Nobody likes doing that, right? Okay, so that's our first kind of wheelchair story. The next one, a little bit sadder. Okay, this is also a wheelchair lady, and this one's like not super anything crazy. It just kind of was one that was a little bit sad for me. So we had this lady, and look, here's our lovely stick man is gonna be how I'm drawing this stuff. So, and her mouth's super wide open. So here, we'll give her red hair. I'm not allowed to do so. Per HIPAA, just so you guys know, HIPAA is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. I can't give out any specific details about patients, anything that would help you identify them. Just so you know. So obviously, it's not gonna be accurate. I can't give you names or anything like that. But anyway, so this lady had just got she's been in the hospital for about a month. It was for some surgery. I don't remember exactly what it was because this was like 3 years ago, right? And I was taking her to just a nursing facility. She's gonna be in there for a while, and I remember it was near the holidays. I think it was around like Christmas or something like that. And I was talking with her, and I was just like, "Well, like, you have any family or anything like that?" And she was like, "No, like, all my family's dead. Like, my kids died in a car accident, and my husband passed away a few years ago." And I remember her going to there, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm just like all alone," and she was super depressed. And I was like, "Wow, that's like." I'm not giving this story justice, but she had a very sad story, and taking her to the facility, that's like one of the emotional parts of me. Was a little touched there, despite me not really having strong emotions. So, I took her to this facility, and I came back, and this is the only patient I've ever come back to visit. Okay, so I dropped her off, and the next week I was at the same facility. So I went by and I stopped her, and that fucking made her day. So after that, she was so happy that I was able to stop by for her and help her out. So I was at least able to help her out, and yeah, she was super nice lady. So um, yeah, that would touch on. I'm trying to go into detail about this, and we'll see how well that goes. But anyway, so that was her. She was super nice lady, and getting into this field, you want to help people, and I think sometimes it's not just when they're out there bleeding, right? It's not just fixing their bleeding. Sometimes you have to be there emotionally for them, right? Sometimes I have to like comfort these people who are dying, right? Who are going to hospice care. And it's usually their families who are the ones crying. Because usually, if you're going on hospice care, they're super out of it anyway. But sometimes you do get some high emotions. Emotions run high, so sometimes that can be interesting. But yeah. So anyway, that was that patient. All right, that was kind of a heavy one for me. So let's do. I have a whole list of stuff I'm looking at here, so we're gonna kind of hop around the list, and I'll delete them as we go. Of ones I want to get through today. So okay, the next one's a little bit funnier. This one, so that was the only two like major wheelchair like things I have. Everything else is gonna be related to the ambulance and related to stretcher patients and all that good stuff. So we'll do like some funnier ones. We'll do some more interesting ones and stuff like that. So the first one I want to talk about is so this lady. So if you go in, if you're having mental health issues, right, and you go to the hospital, they basically are going to do a psych run up on you, right? They're going to see where you need to go. They're probably going to transfer you to a psych hospital, okay, if you are having issues, and they put you on something called an M1 hold. Um, M1 hold basically allows doctors to hold you for 72 hours against your will. Um, so a lot of the patients that we take are on M1 holds that we take to behavioral health, so they don't have a choice, okay? So bearing that in mind, this lady, I don't remember if she was there. She was in there for some psych problems, but she was very upbeat. I don't remember quite. I think it was like schizophrenia, maybe, or something like that. But I remember she was born. She had been born in the United States, okay, and I remember picking her up, and she's funny. So hold on, let me try and draw this real quick. All right, here's this girl, my lovely stick figures again. It's all gonna be stick figures. So sorry if you don't want stick figures because I cannot draw worth a shit. Which is why I thought it'd be funny for me to try and draw this. So she had on her head. All right, see if you can figure out what this is. All right, she had something like this. Okay, this is not her hair. Just so you know, this is not her hair. This is an actual drawing of something. Okay, and then she had kind of this doohickey. All right, and then she had this, right? Okay. So you're gonna figure out what this is in a second. But I just thought it was funny, okay? What this is. So this is, here you go. And got some eyes here, and then we'll do like an open mouth, okay? So that's supposed to be Pikachu. She's wearing a Pikachu hat, and I know that does not look like Pikachu, but that is what it was. She's wearing a Pikachu hat, okay? And I was like, oh, like you like Pokemon? She's like, oh, I love Oriental stuff. I find it fascinating. And I was like, why are you speaking a British accent? Aren't you American? And she's like, oh, I speak with, I cannot do a British accent very well. She's like, oh, I speak with a British accent because I am tone deaf. And I was like, really? Because being tone deaf does not make you have a different accent. I don't think she knew what tone deaf meant. But yeah, that's basically what she was saying, and I just thought she was hilarious. And she kept taking this part, right, which was kind of disgusting. But she kept taking this part, like these parts, right? They're little hanging down, like little pom pom things, and she kept like sucking at them through a transport. I was just like, oh man, it's like pretty disgusting, right? It's like been in your hair. Probably got lice on this shit, and now you're just fucking like sucking on it. But yeah. So that lady was crazy, but I thought she was pretty funny, and she was kind of cute. She was kind of close at my age, so if she hadn't been fucking psycho, I'd been like, hey, when you got a loony bin, you should have hit me up, right? I'm just kidding. That would be very unprofessional. I would never do that. But all right, so let's like this, and I need to cut. What's going on here? Why is the background white? And I do not. Hold on. Cut. Crop. Well, I cut it to white. Okay. Man, I'm all messed up here. All right, hold on. Let me fix this real quick. And then I'll go back to some. There we go. Trying to make everything white, and I done fucked up. Paint is definitely not the most ideal of things to use, is it? Okay, so that's the British accent, lady. That's what I had it named as in here. Okay, so let's do some more interesting ones. All right, these ones are gonna be a little bit harder for me to draw, so you're gonna have to bear with me here. Okay. So this one, this was a car crash. It was on the highway. They were going about 70 miles an hour. Okay, so here is my upside down car. So they're going 70 miles per hour, and they flipped the car, and they rolled it like, it will do like a dash. It's like pretty bent up, right? So this upside down. They rolled it, according to witnesses, like 3 to 4 times. Okay, they rolled this car while on the highway going 70 miles per hour. So here's the upside down car, and you got like, I don't know, your windshield or some shit. Yeah, look at that. Look at that beautiful car. Oh, look at those doors. Yeah, those are the doors. All right, so that's my upside down car. So we the fire department managed to extract them from this car, okay? There was 3 people inside the car. So 2 of them were drunk, okay? They were teenagers. All 3 of them were teenagers. So 2 of them were 18, okay? And they're both drunk. So they decided, you know what's a good idea? Let's let the 14-year-old without a license drive the car. So there's a 14-year-old driving the car, and that's basically how they ended up getting in this car wreck, right? For letting the 14-year-old drive. And she lied to us about her age. She said she was old enough to at least have her permit, but she said she was 15, which she was not. So, and they were all worried they're gonna get in trouble with their parents, which I'm sure they did. But also like don't risk their lives. So I'll kind of draw the 3 people here, right? So the 14-year-old was driving, right? So she's in the front of the car, okay? She basically got away pretty scotch-free. So here's her hand. Oh, look at that beautiful hand. And her hand was pretty cut up. So her hand was bleeding quite a bit. I managed to manage that up. That was not really a problem. And I managed to get like a set of vitals on her on the way to the hospital. And that's about all we really did, okay, for her. She did not need a whole lot of attention. She was pretty fine. One of the 18-year-olds in the front seat, he was wearing a seatbelt. Okay, he was fine. He had absolutely no injuries. He rode down in the ambulance in the front seat. So keep in mind, we took all 3 of these patients in one ambulance trip, okay? So he rode up front. He's fine. We didn't have to worry about him. The last guy was pretty fucked up, okay? He was in the back seat and he was not wearing a seatbelt. So I'm going to tell you right now, seatbelts will save your life, okay? They are meant to help you. So this is supposed to be my backboard, which it's pretty awful. So backboards, if we suspect their spine's almost broken and they have major injuries, we put this on their backboard and we kind of strap them down, right? So here's him on the backboard. We got like some seat belts kind of going through. Like here's a little seat belt, right? Going over him. So his he was having super severe pain. He's screaming. He is not in a good mood, right? He is super high pain level. So we get him on this backboard to stop him from having any further spinal injury. You can smell the alcohol in his breath, and he's just screaming bloody murder. But other than possible back injury, we didn't find a ton of other like bleeding or any super obvious injuries on him. So he managed to get away okay, like injury-wise. So we loaded him in the back of the ambulance on the backboard. He was the only one on the stretcher, right? We had the 14-year-old sitting on the bench in the back of the ambulance and patched her up. So this guy, we got some vitals. We gave him a little oxygen. His oxygen was a little low. He's screaming. I remember the medic gave him some fentanyl, some painkillers to help him out, which definitely did help quite a bit. And it's funny because we had 3 people on the ambulance, right? So there's 3 of us healthcare providers. Actually, there was 4, but 1 left when we transported. And then we have 3 patients. So that's 6 people, right? In the ambulance, right? 6 people. And then we had a state trooper who's trying to get all the info of what happened, right? So he hops in the back of the ambulance. We had 7 people in this ambulance. I was just like, you need to like calm down. Like you need to get out. We need to go to the hospital. You can get all your fucking info at the hospital, okay? Like we gotta go. So I ended up kicking out the state trooper so we could transport this guy down. And he, by the time we got down to the hospital, he was a little less in pain because of the fentanyl. So fentanyl did manage to help him. And they're lucky they survived, honestly, going that fast. But the reason why he was so messed up, right, is because he's in the back seat, okay, and not wearing your seatbelt. He gets flung into the back seat of the passenger seat. So he was in the passenger kind of side, behind the passenger. So he gets flung into the seat at 70 miles an hour. And then they're rolling, right? So he's getting flung all over the back of the place, right? Just fucking his back up while we're going. So he, the fact that he kind of managed to get out there without paralysis, which I don't have outcomes on most of these patients, so I don't know if he did get paralysis from that. He could have maybe. But I think he was able to move all the extremities when we got him. So the fact that he survived is pretty fascinating, honestly. If he was sitting in the front seat, he probably would not have survived because he probably would have gotten shot out of the front seat of the car. So, yeah. So that's that story. That they were pretty fucked up, but luckily they all managed to survive at the end of the day. It could have been much worse. I'm sure the parents were super fucking terrified, and it was like 2 a.m. was that call, right? So we're picking these guys up at 2 a.m. I'm sure their parents didn't even know they were out, right? They probably snuck out and just almost died doing it. So make good decisions is basically what I'm trying to say, and wear your seatbelts. So that one was pretty bad. So I didn't write down this next story, but this story kind of goes along with car crashes, okay? And this one's a little bit more interesting. So this lady was going down the highway, okay? She also rolls, but what she does is she's drunk too, okay? She goes off the edge of the highway. It's like a smaller highway. It's a slower speed highway, but she manages to get over the guardrail, flips her way down the mountain, okay? So, like, let's say, look, here's, hold on. Hold on. Like, here's the mountain, right? It's kind of like steep. I don't know if that represents steepness. So the car's like down here. Okay, it was a truck. So here's your truck. Oh, look at that beautiful truck. Oh man, it's gotten all wonky all of a sudden. But so I go up, and I see this lady's head crushed, basically not crushed, but like almost crushed. Okay, so like here's you know what? That's not the color. Hold on. That's not the color I want to use at all. I want to use the color of the truck first, okay? So her window was down. Her driver window was down, right? As she was cruising down, okay? So here is this is just the window, okay? So here's the window, and boom. And basically the window is collapsed. So this is kind of, just imagine this is the roof, right? And this is the window, okay? Then you got like the rest of the truck kind of smashed in around this, okay? Her head is smushed basically in here, okay? Her head's just barely poking out. I can barely see her head crushed between the top and the bottom of the window, just crushed in there, okay? And I'm walking up and I'm like, this lady's dead. Like, there's no way, right? She's fucking dead. And I walk up and I hear her talking. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how did she survive that? She was wearing her seatbelt, luckily, so she did not get thrown out of the car. But her head, you know, is just flopping around, gets in between the window, and then she gets crushed in the window or whatever. And her neck was pretty fucked up, right? She's in super severe pain. But the reason she survived is, you guys probably don't know this. Drunks are way more likely to survive because when you get in a car wreck, if you're loose and you're flopping around, you're going with the direction of the physics of the car. Your bones are able to take that a little bit better than when you're rigid. So if you're rigid, and let's say your knees are like facing forward and you go fling into the steering wheel, right? Your knees are not going to be able to take that pressure as much as if you're loose and they can kind of wrap around the steering wheel. I know I'm not explaining that super well, but that's why drunks usually are able to survive car wrecks a little bit better, in my pretty bad way of describing that. So, yeah, so we backboarded her. It took us a while to get her out of the car, okay? The firefighters had to use the jaws of life, and they had to basically get the roof up off of her head so we could get her out. And so we did that, and then we were able to kind of pull her out the passenger side of the car. And we actually ended up having to restrain her, which is even crazier because she started fighting us. So she was like super lively because she was drunk. So she's there fighting us. We're trying to give her pain medications because she's in super severe pain and her back is like possibly broken, you know? But she was able to move everything, so her back is probably not broken, but like pretty severe pain anyway. So we were able to do that. We were able to get her out of there, and luckily she survived too. And it could have been a lot worse, luckily for her. So she's yeah, she could have been much worse, and it's just like, luckily she didn't injure anybody else, right? It was just her. She was the only one in that car wreck, so that helps out herself for sure. Okay, moving on. So that's an extra one I hadn't even written down. We're probably not gonna be through all the stories today, and I'm thinking we'll probably do like a few more stories, and I'll save this notepad. We can come back and do this again. Add a couple more stories and stuff in here. But we might play, like I said, some Dicey Dungeons today, or maybe some Flashing Lights. We'll see. Dicey Dungeons is a little bit more entertaining, I think. Just because I'll probably be talked out by the time I finish talking through all this stuff. Okay, so let's see what other calls we got here that have been pretty interesting. I think we're gonna mix like some serious ones and like funny ones in between, right? Okay, so this is a pretty funny one. So this is another person on M1 hold, right? So they have gotten their rights taken away. He was homeless. Okay, so he's homeless, walking around, and doesn't really have a place to stay or anything. I think he lived like under a bridge or something like that. Okay. He was, I would say, schizophrenic. Okay, so he's hearing voices, and the interesting part though was the voices he had a connection. What he said was a connection to God. All right, and I'm going to show you what this is. This is not supposed to be. This looks like a wolf, and it's not supposed to be a wolf. This is supposed to be a raccoon. So this guy, when they picked him up, the police picked him up because he was walking around with a dead raccoon head. Not a dead raccoon, just the head. It was decomposing. He was carrying it like in a bag, and then he said he was talking to it, and that was his connection to God. Okay? So he was just carrying his raccoon head. I remember we were transferring him between hospitals, and then I was just like, "Don't ask him about the raccoon head because we definitely got rid of that." And I was like, "Okay, I won't ask him about that." I remember rolling him outside of the ambulance, and he just looks. He's not even looking at us. He's looking up at the ceiling. He's just like, "What? I can't hear you. My connection is cut off." And I'm pretty sure that's because he didn't have his raccoon head to talk to. He's saying his connection to God was not there, which is pretty interesting. But so obviously Super has some mental issues, and his hair. Man, homeless people, I gotta tell you, some homeless people. I know it's not always their fault, but like there's some of the like just their hygiene's like obviously they don't have a lot of hygiene. They don't have a place to shower or anything like that. So his hair, he looked like he had like birds living in his hair. Basically, he looked like a bird nest. It was all matted up. It was just all super disgusting. And we didn't notice this until we got him to the hospital. But we got him to the hospital and the behavioral health hospital, and we got his belongings out with like his jacket and his clothes and all that stuff. And he had just so many bed bugs. It was unbelievable. Like I looked at his jacket. I don't know why we didn't. I guess I didn't really think about it. I assumed the hospital checked this before we picked him up, but they didn't. And I just looked down at his bag of stuff, and I just see a whole bunch of bed bugs just swarming his fucking jacket. Like there was so many. It just looked like his jacket was moving, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" Like we cannot take this stuff in, right? So we're going to Beaver House there. We like ditched the bag out front. We told the staff, we're like, you're gonna have to do something with that because there's so many bed bugs. And luckily, I don't think any of them got into our ambulance. Like we never found any bed bugs afterwards, but we tried to like spray the shit out of it with alcohol to make sure there's no more bed bugs in there. It was like super fucking crazy. But yeah, just like the bed bugs is so disgusting, right? Yeah, so that dude was pretty messed up, and he was talking to himself the whole way. And I went to go the pulse ox is something you put on their finger in the hospital, right? And it tells what your heart rate is and what your oxygen's at. So I went to go put it on him, and he just freaks out. Like, he goes like, he like does that with his hand. Every time I like barely touch him, he just like freaks out. And I'm like, okay, man, like you need to chill. Like I'm just trying to help you. I'm not trying to like freak you out or anything. So yeah, he was a very interesting fellow. And carrying around a dead raccoon head is something I did not think I'd ever hear a nurse tell me that somebody was doing, as that had not been in my list of stuff. So that guy was pretty interesting. I'm not gonna lie, he was definitely one of the most interesting I had. I had around him a few months ago, so he's probably my most interesting recent patient. Maybe I have a few other ones, but okay. So that guy was pretty funny. Moving on. This one's pretty interesting too. So if you guys don't know, for my volunteer company, my personal car has license sirens on it. So I just respond to my personal car, and I just meet the ambulance on scene, or I rally with them somewhere, or something like that. But for this one, the ambulance had already gotten there for this guy, okay? I got there probably like a couple minutes after the ambulance or so. This guy was working at a public building, okay? Pardon my freaking drawing. This is supposed to be his hand. So I believe it was his middle finger, okay? He was using a saw, and you probably already guessed where this story's going. And he was cutting some planks or something like that, and he just sliced off, like, I think the cut was probably like this, right? So he had like a part of his middle finger missing, and it was like cut almost like down the middle, okay? Like imagine this is like his middle finger, down the middle, just cut in half basically. And then he cut off the tip of one of his other fingers. So this guy obviously in pretty bad pain. I just noticed I need to put on some lotion. Sorry, a little ADD, but yeah, my hand's good. Yeah. Anyway, he's cut off one of his fingers. So if somebody cuts off their finger, what they do in the hospital is they try and re-sew it on, right? So we had to go find this dude's fingers. Okay, we had to go find parts of his fingers. We had to put it in a bag, and we had to put it on ice and take it down to the hospital with us. Which I did not think I was going to be doing that, right? But I had to do that, so that was pretty interesting. But luckily, we managed to bandage up and stop the bleeding pretty quickly. It's almost impossible for you to bleed out and die from a finger injury. You just don't get enough blood flow there. So he managed to clot up his own pretty quickly. Of course, he's like super bad pain. So, but fortunately for him, it could turn out worse. I assume they were able to sew back on parts of his fingers. So he's probably, he's gonna have permanent scars from that for sure. But at least he was able to save his hand, you know. So that could have turned out way worse, but So yeah, that one was pretty interesting. Not gonna lie. Um, that's about the basis of that call. Oops. Oopsie, I did a poopsie. All right, beautiful. Okay, let's see what's next. This is kind of a funnier one too. I don't know, I don't know if I can really draw anything about this, but this one's a short story. So, I was picking up this patient the other day. This one was a pretty recent story too. Um, this patient's husband was in the room with us. Okay, it was like a 60s-year-old female, something like that. And she didn't talk. She was nonverbal. She wouldn't talk to us at all. She just was chilling, and I think that was due to a stroke. She'd had a stroke previously, so she couldn't talk anymore. Her husband took pretty good care of her, but she did need to go into a facility for her stroke. And basically, I was helping the nurse. She had the stickers all over her, right, where we check out your heart, which is called an EKG, okay, if you didn't know. And if you watch my flashing lights, you would know that that's what it's called. So I was helping take off the stickers, and we usually just feel through the shirt, right? We feel where the wires are going, and we find that, and then you're able to just unclip them pretty easily, okay? So I was helping the nurse do that so we could, get moving and get out of there pretty quick. And her husband looks at me and looks at her, and it's just like, don't worry, honey. He's a paramedic, not a pervert. And I was just like, okay, yeah, tell your wife that. I mean, I guess that's kind of reassuring, but pretty interesting despite everything. So that's basically all that story. I just thought it was funny. That was just a funny quote by him. So we'll probably do a couple more stories, and then maybe we'll switch to some Dicey Dungeons. I don't want to use up all my stories. I know obviously I might get some more as we go, but we'll do a couple more interesting ones here. This one is a really fun one. Okay, so this one happened probably like a year or so ago. So I'm gonna get drawing this one first, okay? So maybe use like a different color. Like this is like the top of a house, right? Okay, there's a little roof. Part of the house, and like the rest of the house kind of like branched off this way. Like kind of came this way. Boom, boom. Beautiful drawing. And this is the garage, okay? So you got kind of the garage doors here. Again, I know I suck at drawing, and the whole reason I'm doing the drawing is just because, why not? Because it adds a little bit more to the story, right? My shitty drawings. So this is the garage, okay? These people called for a smell of gas, okay? It was some natural gas, I think, or something like that. Maybe not natural gas, whatever one smells. I'm not a firefighter. I don't know about that shit, but anyway, they called for gas smell, so we, in our little ambulance, we don't really go in on that stuff, right? We're not firefighters, so we sat around the corner, okay, like maybe a couple blocks down, while the firefighters went in and dealt with this odor smell, okay? So you got two firefighters in here, in this garage, right? And they're trying to turn off the electrics, okay? And it was like over here, right? Here's the electric panel. That looks like an electric symbol, right? So they're going over to this panel, trying to turn off the electricity. They open up the panel. I don't know what they did. They did something. And they caused a spark. And huge explosion, okay? Just explodes the whole fucking garage. Blows some people out it blows these two firefighters. They get knocked clear out of the garage, right? So they go flying out of the garage. Shrapnel everywhere. Garage collapses, okay? So here's the garage collapses. Debris everywhere. The firefighters, luckily, because they were wearing all their protective gear, were actually pretty minimally injured, honestly. One of them had no injuries, was not complaining of anything, except for like his ears ringing a little bit, which kind of subsides anyway. The other one, when he fell, he like caught himself with his hand, right? So he kind of hurt his wrist. But other than that, he was fine. So we helped him get his bunker gear off, and we wanted to check him out, right? Because he's the only one reporting any pain or an injury. And his gear was melted. Like, that's how hot the explosion was, right? It's just melted gear. So we had to, like, basically end up cutting his gear off because it was melted. because it was melting around like the zippers and stuff. And we couldn't get it off. So, yeah, we managed to do that and get that stuff off of him. And he managed to turn out pretty all right, honestly. We took him down to the hospital just because we wanted to get him checked out. We didn't want him to have any long-term injuries, right? So we took him down to the hospital for that, and he ended up being fine. Like, he was out within like a couple hours. Like, he didn't have any injuries that they needed to do or anything. So, all in all, it turned out much worse. And they took him like 3 hours because it did start some fire, but like just small fires. So they had to put out some of the fires, and it took them a little while to do that and then get the situation under control. It called in, we had a whole bunch of different fire departments there for that one, helping with that. So, yeah, but the firefighters luckily wear your gear, right? Like they could have been so much worse if they're not wearing the gear. Like they could have died from that easily. Um, and you know, it's funny because I'm talking a lot about the firefighters, but us, we were sitting around the corner in our ambulance. And we're like, oh, this is boring. Like, nothing ever fucking happens on this shit. Like, why do we even come to here, right? And we just hear this huge fucking boom, right? And the whole ambulance shakes. And I was sitting in the back of the ambulance. I thought somebody hit us. I was like, I thought a car just ran into the back of us, but there's no car there, right? And I was like, what the fuck? And I look up and the paramedic's like freaking out because there's an explosion up there. A small explosion. We couldn't really see the explosion, but he figured out what it was, right? He figured there was some explosion in the garage, so. Yeah, we managed to get up there, and luckily I'll take care of the firefighters. And while they're fighting fires and stuff, we usually just encourage them to drink, and we check their vitals and make sure they're not overdoing it, right? So we're checking all of our firefighters, and we're watching them as they're fighting this fire, making sure they're doing all right. So, yeah, that one was pretty crazy. That's probably the craziest I've ever had. It's definitely the only explosion I ever had. So that one was definitely pretty interesting, though. And yeah, I ended up transporting that firefighter down to the hospital. So he definitely remembers me to this day. I see him all the time now. He always talks to me. He's always like, you know, super respectful to me and stuff, which is pretty amazing. You know, it's great. We have like some camaraderie and stuff now. So before, I used to try and stay under the radar. I don't like people super knowing my name or knowing who I am because that way you can't get in trouble if nobody knows who you are, right? But yeah, so anyway, that turned out pretty good. But okay, let's do like one more. We'll do like one more story here, and then I think we'll switch to some Dicey Dungeons for the last. See, we got like 2 hours left of streaming. We might do a little bit of that, but maybe flashing lights. We'll see. We'll see how we feel. Maybe do a little bit, like 45 minutes flashing lights, and then do like some Dicey Dungeons because we still got plenty of time left. So, okay. Let's see which other one we should do here. Looking through my list of patients. We could do like another funnier one. This guy is pretty interesting too. So this guy was drunk. Brought to the hospital for being drunk. He was just doing dumb shit. Like if you're not doing dumb stuff when you're drunk, you're usually fine. But if you're out in public doing dumb stuff, that's when you get hauled to the hospital. And they have to do something with you. So we were transferring this guy to detox. So basically detox is just like I want to say it's almost like a jail. Like you take somebody to jail to like sober up for like however long it takes to sober up, which is pretty interesting. But this guy we were hauling to detox, okay? So we load him into the ambulance, and he's like pretty vulgar. He's like referring to me because obviously I look really young to be being an EMT, right? A lot of people comment on my age all the time, so he was talking about that. And we load him into the ambulance, and I was driving for this one. I was going to be driving, right? My partner gets in the back of the ambulance with him, and he asked me, he's like, well, like, how are you feeling right now, man? He's like, well, I don't know how I feel about the 16-year-old driving the ambulance. And I was like, oh, yeah, so I get comments my age all the time, so I thought it was still pretty funny, but we were driving, and I was not, like, he was just, because he was drunk, he was getting pretty motion sick, so we were going around turns and stuff, and he actually ended up throwing up because because of how drunk he was, so I don't remember what his BAC was, his alcohol level, but it's not really relevant in his story anyway, but we managed to get him to detox, and we dropped him off, and I'm sure he's fine out being drunk other places now, especially with this pandemic. A lot of people are just at home getting drunk, right? So, yeah, I didn't really draw a picture for that one. I didn't know what to draw for that one, but whatever. My picture suck anyway. It's more just about the storytelling, right? Yeah, so anyway, I think that's probably the amount of stories we're going to do for today. I still have a bunch of stories, but I think I'm going to save them so that we can do this again. It's kind of like, I guess it's not really like a podcast, but it's kind of like a podcast. I know I'm not the best of storytellers, but hopefully I'll get better if we keep doing these, right? Because obviously I'll keep getting some stories over time anyway, so keep telling you about as they come. And we can keep doing something like this. And I'll upload this on my YouTube too, so you guys can come back and watch the stories later. So don't think you're going to miss out on stories. I'll try not to retell stories if I don't have to. But yeah, that's basically the ethics of what we're going to be doing here. So we're going to probably stop there, and we're going to switch to some flashing lights. And I think we're going to play that for like 45 minutes, and then maybe we'll do Dicey Dungeons for the rest of the day. So let me just get...